We recently received our newest Marvel show with Echo premiering on Disney+. So, having seen every MCU film and show up until now, I thought this would be a perfect time to rank the MCU.
Da 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 da
Bom bom.
da 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 da.
Bom bom.
Hey, everybody! Man, have I missed your beautiful faces. Yes, I'm talking to you, you beautiful faced human you. I hope you had an amazing holiday season and an even better 2024. As a disclaimer before I jump into the video, just a friendly reminder that this video is in fact the only MCU ranking that actually matters, and if you disagree with me, you're wrong and smell like... Okay. All jokes aside, this is obviously just my opinion. Also, I only ranked what's included as a Marvel film or show on the Marvel Studios website. So the Netflix shows like Daredevil or shows like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or Agent Carter will not be included. Only what's included as canon MCU on the Marvel Studios website. In addition, I will show the IMDb score for each movie and TV show in the list, just for fun so that you could see what rating each one has received on IMDb. Lastly, I won't spend a lot of time talking about each movie or show, as I've already been talking a lot and want to keep this video from getting too long. If you stick around till the end of the video, I do like to end every video by shouting out a relatively unknown charity that does a lot of good. Information will be in the description below. Now let's jump into it. Number 47, and my least favorite MCU project is Secret Invasion. A lackluster thriller that forgets the thrills and is extremely forgettable. This should have been so much better considering it had Samuel L. Jackson front and center and told the story of one of the most influential comic runs of all time. But it falls flat in almost every way. There's no sense of urgency, no real emotional connection to it, and feels like it was written by AI. There's nothing redeeming about this show for me whatsoever. Number 46, Thor: Love and Thunder. I wanted to like this so much, but in the end, the story doesn't seem to take itself seriously at all, even when addressing very serious things like cancer and godly genocide. This whole movie just feels like one big joke that wastes the potential of both Christian Bale and Natalie Portman. Number 45, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Another waste of potential. The story failed to make me feel any sort of threat from Kang, which is a problem when he's supposed to be the next big bad. The story just feels hollow and overly campy, and similar to Love and Thunder, it goes for the joke over good storytelling. It feels like it was made by committee, and because of that, it takes no real identity of its own. Number 44, She-Hulk: Attorney at Law. While I love the She-Hulk character in the comics, this show was rough. It seemed to fall apart on itself. It tries so hard to be funny and clever, but most of the jokes don't land. It sets up elements of the plot that never go anywhere and doesn't take its main character seriously. It felt like the creative team did absolutely no homework on the responsibilities of a lawyer or on courtroom proceedings, and the ending just feels lazy. Number 43, The Marvels. The three main characters are played by three very charismatic actresses, but the story and the villain are both dull. This once again just feels like a story written either by AI or by a very stressed and overworked writing staff. Every emotional moment is brushed off with a joke and the movie just feels pointless. Well, at least the post-credits scene is cool. Number 42, Thor: The Dark World. Remember the good old days when we thought that this was definitively the worst Thor movie? This was my least favorite Marvel movie for many years. This movie just feels like unseasoned chicken. It's kinda boring, and that's pretty remarkable considering its charismatic cast. They hadn't quite figured out Thor's personality yet, the villain is beyond generic, and the plot feels contrived. Number 41, Iron Man 2. Following up the film that kicked off the entire MCU, this was one of my most disappointing experiences watching a Marvel movie. It's well known that the movie was rushed, and you can feel it. There's too much crammed into it, just like how there was too much crammed into your mom when I saw her last night. There's my one mom disper video. Oh man, I'm gonna get canceled. And similar to Quantumania, it feels like it was made by committee. Number 40, Echo. The most recent MCU show was unfortunately a disappointment for me. Alaqua Cox is fantastic and a superstar in the making, but the show once again just feels generic and rushed. It feels nothing like what the trailers promised. Besides maybe 3 scenes, the show is not nearly as dark as we were led to believe. Kingpin is wasted and the plot never really picks up or goes anywhere. The characters aren't very likable, and I found myself not caring about the story. All right. Before we move forward, I want to mention that I would give the 8 aforementioned projects all a negative review. The movies that I'm about to mention are mid for me, better than the 8 mentioned, but not great either. Number 39, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. This show should have been easy. It's not rocket science, just have Falcon and Bucky go on a lethal weapon-esque adventure with superpowers. But instead, the story is again very much forgettable. Baron Zemo is great in it, but they tried to give us a sympathetic villain who ends up just being unbearable. There's also a strange twist that involves Sharon Carter, and the ending feels very bland. In the end, the show should have been much better than it was. Number 38, The Eternals. I respect this movie for attempting to be different and ambitious, but it ended up feeling bloated and falling apart from its own weight. There were parts of this movie that I really liked. I really enjoyed the characters of Druig and Makari. I liked the moral dilemma that the Eternals face, but they waste many of the other characters simply because there's just so many. The movie very clearly has a villain problem, and it spreads itself too thin across its complicated plot. Number 37, Black Widow. This movie feels like too little, too late. The Black Widow character is one of the best characters in the MCU, but it feels weird to get this movie after Endgame, and while I did enjoy her family in the movie, especially Red Guardian, and most especially her sister Yelena, the villain once again falls flat for me. The story also has several unrealistic conveniences and one of the worst VFX shots in the entire MCU. Number 36, Captain Marvel. I wish we got more emotion from the main character, and the story feels like it doesn't carry enough weight or stakes. I love the reveal that the Skrulls are actually the oppressed species and the Kree are the villains, but the reveal felt very hollow, and I wish the story took itself more seriously. Even Fury losing his eye was treated like a joke. Number 35, Spider-Man Far From Home. This may be my biggest hot take of the MCU, but I did not think Far From Home was a good movie. There's good parts in it. I thought the middle Mysterio fight scene was awesome, and I love the relationship between Peter and MJ, but man, there are some low lows in my opinion. The drones didn't work for me, the plot about Tony's glasses didn't work for me, and there's a lot of things that I thought were done in poor taste.
Take off your clothes.
Okay. Sure.
I didn't even like that the story was based in Europe. For me, this is one of the worst Spider-Man films ever made. Number 34, Iron Man 3. I really enjoyed Tony's journey of self-discovery in this movie, but in the end, the story feels pointless. The villain is basically just Syndrome from The Incredibles, but not nearly as interesting as Syndrome is. I personally found the Extremis plotline to be uninteresting, and there's frankly not enough Iron Man or War Machine in this movie with a lackluster ending. Number 33, Miss Marvel. I wasn't as big a fan of this show as some others I know. Now, I love Iman Vellani as Miss Marvel, and I thought the representation of Pakistani culture was beautiful. I also really love Kamala's family in this, but the show felt inconsistent in tone for me from one episode to the next. The villain did not interest me at all. Damage control felt very cartoonish and shoehorned in. The lore became convoluted, and I think the story would have benefited from being more focused. Number 32, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. There are things that I adore about this movie. I love undead Doctor Strange. Scarlet Witch is probably the most underrated character and deserves more screen time in the MCU, but this movie just feels like a rushed mess. It's been said that the movie was rewritten 33 times, and you can feel it. I love the Sam Raimi isms, but the story never really explores Wanda's turn to the dark side enough, and the movie left me wishing for more. Alright. Now, while the last 8 mentioned MCU projects were mid for me, the good news is everything that I mentioned from here on out, I would give a positive review for. Number 31. I Am Groot Seasons 1 and 2. I'm cheating here a little bit because I went ahead and combined both Seasons 1 and 2 of I Am Groot, but these are very cute little 5-minute shorts focused on Groot's adventures when he first sprouts, and they're very simple and very adorable. Nothing crazy here, but I enjoyed watching the shorts, and you can watch both seasons in like 40 minutes. Number 30. Ant-Man and the Wasp. A straightforward follow up to Ant Man, this is a fun, simple film with two great leads in Paul Rudd and Evangeline Lilly. It does suffer from the MCU's forgettable villain syndrome and gives us a forgettable character with Ghost, but I like the focused plot and enjoy the relationship between Ant Man and Wasp. Number 29. Moon Knight. I love the beginning of this show and really enjoy Oscar Isaac's portrayal of Moon Knight and his multiple personalities. I also really like the exploration of Egyptian mythology, but Ethan Hawke is largely wasted as a villain. The story struggles to stay focused in the middle, and the ending just goes for the generic monster fight. I think this character's story would have been better in a movie rather than a show. Number 28. The Incredible Hulk. I think this movie gets a bad rep. A lot of people hate on Incredible Hulk, and while it's not particularly great and doesn't really stand out, I don't think it's a bad movie at all. I really liked Norton as the Hulk and really liked Blonsky's evolution in the film into Abomination. Sure, the movie is very predictable, maybe a bit generic, and I'm not the biggest fan of Hulk's design here, but I still enjoy watching this film. Number 27. Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. A fun Christmas adventure with our lovable Guardians team. I think centering the story on Drax and Mantis is an excellent idea. You have Kevin Bacon in the story too, which is hilarious. I do wish there was a bit more emotional payoff in the story, and it can be a bit mean-spirited, but overall, this is a great one to watch during the holidays. Number 26. What If Season 1. I really like the concept of this show. I was a big fan of Marvel's What If comics. While some of the episodes fell kind of flat, like the Party Thor episode, overall I really enjoyed this season and loved the OP Ultron ending, and the Doctor Strange losing his heart episode is way better than it had any right to be. Number 25. Black Panther Wakanda Forever. I thought this movie had both very high highs and low lows. I really loved Shuri's character. I loved Namor as a villain. I thought they did a great job paying tribute to Chadwick Boseman. Rest in peace, King. But I wasn't crazy about Ironheart, and I thought the third act felt rushed with a lazy action sequence. Still, overall, I did enjoy the movie. Number 24. What If Season 2. I thought this season was a slight improvement over Season 1. I enjoyed the overarching theme of loss and love. I thought the weakest episode was unfortunately the final episode with Strange Supreme appearing again, but I really enjoyed the Blade Runner-esque Nebula episode. The 1602 episode was a lot of fun, and I liked the introduction of the Kahori character. Overall, another fun series of what if ideas. Number 23. Loki Season 1. I was very skeptical of this show when I first heard it announced, but the show won me over. The highlight for me was the friendship between Mobius and Loki. I also really liked Loki's evolution throughout the show and the introduction of his variants as well as of He Who Remains. However, I personally wasn't the biggest fan of Sylvie's character. Number 22. Ant-Man. A very fun and simple superhero movie, Ant-Man has fun and unique action sequences, a great lead with Paul Rudd, and a straightforward plot focused on a heist. It's nothing extravagant, but that's also what makes this movie so charming. It's a solid addition to the MCU and established Ant-Man as an essential character moving forward. Number 21. Thor. I think the first Thor has aged well. It provides a Shakespearean approach to Thor and Loki's story and has fun fish out of water elements to it, which gives some laugh out loud moments. While the middle does drag a bit, I think the film does a great job balancing the laughs with the drama, and it's one I still enjoy watching very much. Number 20. Shang-Chi Legend of the Ten Rings. A solid introduction to Shang-Chi's character. I think Wenwu makes a great villain, and his dynamic with Shang-Chi makes great storytelling. While I did enjoy the first half of the movie much more than the second half, I still really enjoy this movie as a whole, and I'm very excited to see Shang-Chi appear in the MCU again. Number 19, Captain America The First Avenger. This is one of those movies where I've actually enjoyed it more and more as time has gone on. Sure, it's a bit campy, sure, it montages through World War II, but it is so charming and so distinct in its identity that I can't help but admire it. I love Steve Rogers' portrayal and his romance with Peggy Carter. I enjoy Red Skull as a villain, and the movie feels strangely nostalgic when I rewatch it. Number 18, WandaVision. The first show in the MCU is still one of the best shows. The hype was real when this show was released and everyone was theorizing about what was going to happen. They did an excellent job in portraying Wanda's traumas and her love of Vision. There are some issues with some of the reveals.
You're Ralph Boner?
Boner.
But overall, it did a great job in telling Wanda's story and feels original. Number 17, Avengers Age of Ultron. Similar to Captain America First Avenger, this movie has aged well over time for me. I think a big part of that is movies like Captain America Civil War and Endgame have retroactively made this movie better. It has some low lows with the treatment of Ultron in the third act and with Quicksilver's portrayal, but it also has some really high highs with Hulk fighting the Hulkbuster, with Captain America's portrayal, with many of the action scenes, and with Hawkeye's character deep dive. It's the weakest Avengers movie, but it's still a fun watch. Number 16, Doctor Strange. Stephen Strange's first film is a wonderful introduction to the character. I do wish there was more in there for Mads Mikkelsen's villain to do, but overall the visuals are excellent. Strange's character arc is very well done, and the story does have a unique flair to it, with unconventional action scenes and a good balance between the humor and its darker themes. Number 15, Loki Season 2. I think the second season of Loki is the best season of a TV show that the MCU has. It is a perfect example of great writing, interesting characters, and a streamlined plot. Some elements of the story can feel a bit contrived, but overall I was very invested throughout the entire season, and I wish we had this same level of creativity and care in the other MCU shows. Number 14, Werewolf by Night. This one-off special caught me by such surprise. I really enjoyed Werewolf by Night. I found myself caring about the characters and invested in the story. It's uniquely stylistic and fun. It has a level of complexity but is very simple at its core. This is one that I've gone back to watch during Halloween, and I'm very curious to see if these characters will appear in the overarching MCU storyline moving forward. Number 13, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Filled with laughs and fun, this sequel is actually a very deep and complex look into redemption and family. It has some mean-spirited elements to it, and the Sovereign feels forced, but I think the story does a fantastic job in deep diving into the motivations and emotions of Star-Lord, Nebula, Gamora, Yondu, and Rocket, and has one of the more emotional endings in the MCU for me. Number 12, Black Panther. Chadwick Boseman absolutely rocked it as Black Panther, and I honestly can't imagine anyone else in the role. This movie also gave us an incredible villain with Killmonger, and presented a great dilemma that even had our hero questioning his own values and motivations. The third act does become a bit generic, but overall an excellent story with a great hero and a very interesting villain in an equally interesting setting within Wakanda. Number 11, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. An exploration into the horrors and sadness of animal cruelty. This movie was a gut punch and shows just how great of a storyteller James Gunn is. I do wish Warlock was handled a little better, as he feels forced into the story, and there were a few too many fake outs of characters dying, but overall a very emotional and satisfying ending to our Guardians story. Phew! We made it to our top 10. Before we jump into it, if you've enjoyed this video, consider giving it a like and subscribing. I try to release videos every chance I get between work and family, and would love to hit 1,000 subscribers. Also, I would consider all 10 of the movies in my top 10 to be amazing movies, not just in the MCU but in cinema as a whole. Yeah, bite me, Martin Scorsese. Just kidding, sir, you are a legend. Number 10, Thor Ragnarok. I feel like this was the movie where Thor really found his identity and became an essential character. It is so vibrant and so different that it feels refreshing. It has multiple great villains with Hela and Grandmaster. It brings in Hulk in a way that just makes sense and portrays both Thor and Loki so well and makes them both very likable. It does all that while traversing different settings and introducing new characters like Korg and Valkyrie, and it never feels bloated. Number 9, Spider-Man Homecoming. A great introduction to Tom Holland's Spider-Man, this movie does an excellent job in showing us a teenage Peter Parker with teenager problems. We get to see Peter dealing with homecoming and high school dating while he grows as a hero and battles a great villain with Michael Keaton's Vulture. While I understand the complaint that this Peter feels more like Iron Boy rather than Spider-Man, I actually think they did a great job in making the character unique from Spider-Man's portrayal in the past and really enjoyed the relationship between Tony Stark and Peter Parker. Number 8, Iron Man. The first MCU film is still one of the best. Marvel Studios and Robert Downey Jr. changed cinema with this film and started one of the greatest franchises of all time. Iron Man became a household name, and for good reason. This movie gives us a streamlined story and a great character arc with a complex and unique hero at its center.
I am Iron Man.
Number 7, Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Captain America's second film explores the idea of old school mentality versus the gray morality of modern day problems. It's a fantastic next step in Steve Rogers' character arc and brings in pivotal characters with Falcon and Bucky's evolution into the Winter Soldier. It also has one of the best portrayals of both Nick Fury and Black Widow in any film. It demonstrates some of the best hand-to-hand combat in the entire MCU, and has a very well-paced plot that flows effortlessly and has a satisfying end. Number 6, Guardians of the Galaxy. Never has a movie surprised me more than Guardians of the Galaxy. As a big comic geek, I was never a big fan of the Guardians of the Galaxy comics and thought it was a bad idea when they announced this movie was going to be made by the guy who wrote and produced Scooby-Doo 2. But man, was I so glad to be wrong. This movie is one of the greatest superhero movies of all time. It introduces us to a stellar team of unique heroes who each possess their own traumas, and the story makes us feel like we're joining this intergalactic family as they make their mark on the world. Or should I say, galaxy.
Who are you?
Star-Lord.
Who?
Number 5, The Avengers. I know now it might not seem quite as special nowadays, but when they announced the plan to make a superhero team-up film that would bring together several very different movies, it was unheard of, and they did it. The Avengers was one of the best experiences I've had in a theater. Every character got their time to shine and the audience was going wild. This movie reshaped the entire MCU for the better and for good reason.
Dr. Banner, now might be a really good time for you to get angry.
That's my secret, Captain. I'm always angry.
Number 4, Spider-Man: No Way Home. I know there are some issues with the setup of this movie, and that a lot of the movie is just fan service, but honestly, I don't mind that. This movie was such a nostalgic piece of fun, I absolutely loved it. Never did I think I would see Tom Holland, Andrew Garfield, and Tobey Maguire each as Spider-Man in a movie together. The movie did a great job in not just giving each hero and each villain their time in the limelight, but it gave Tom Holland's Peter Parker a great character arc that saw him mature and evolve into a Spider-Man that I can't wait to see again.
Is there anything else?
Number 3, Captain America: Civil War. Captain America has my favorite trilogy in the MCU. Each movie was better than the last and added a piece to Captain America's character arc. His relationship with Iron Man in this is written so well, and we understand both of their sides. This movie also did the impossible task of introducing both Black Panther and Spider-Man while juggling a slew of other characters. It continues developing the friendship between Bucky and Steve and gives us some of the most visceral action scenes in the entire MCU. Okay, honestly, my top two constantly flip-flop because, as you know, they kind of come together to form one overarching story. But, as of me making this video, my number two is Avengers Infinity War. With a beautifully paced plot, this movie brings together our heroes but does something very clever by having our villain Thanos sit front and center in the story. The stakes feel real and very high, and we get a satisfying amount of time with each and every hero involved, except for the Hulk. But anyway, the action scenes towards the end are some of the best action scenes in cinema, period. Thor gets a wonderful character journey with Rocket and Groot. Tony Stark gets his journey with Doctor Strange and Peter Parker. We get to see Captain America team up with his friend T'Challa and Wakanda, and we get a great exploration into the relationship between Wanda and Vision. Any other day, this may be my favorite because it's just so good and the ending hits you like a train.
What'd you do?
And that means my favorite MCU project and number one is Avengers Endgame. Endgame did what seemed to be impossible. It provided a satisfying ending to the Infinity Saga of 21 films. Sure, I think Thor and Hulk could have been handled a bit better, but this movie is honestly nearly perfect in how it handles the character arcs of our three main heroes. Tony gets his peace with his father and makes the ultimate sacrifice. Steve proves to be worthy, then finally gets to be selfish and reunites with the love of his life. And Thor accepts who he is and gets to speak to his deceased mother. Beyond that, the movie gives us one of the greatest movie scenes of all time with the portal scene.
Avengers!
Assemble.
The entire film acts as a love letter to the MCU and its fans, showing us glimpses of previous Marvel films and truly feels like the end of an era. Because of that, Avengers Endgame is my number one.
Iron Man.
And there you have it, folks. It's crazy to think that between Iron Man in 2008 and Avengers Endgame in 2019, we had 22 Marvel projects. And since Avengers Endgame, we've had 25, and that's during a pandemic. I think that's definitely a telltale sign of why quality has dipped. If you like this video and would like to see more, check out my video of my reimagining of Marvel Phase 4. Thank you so very much for checking out my channel. I love you. Yes, you. Before I let you go, I like to end every video by recommending a charity, and the charity I'd like to recommend today is called La Casa De Las Madres. La Casa De Las Madres is a charity dedicated to helping victims of domestic violence. Of all ages, 24 hours a day, they seek to prevent future violence by educating the community and redefining public perceptions about domestic violence. They help domestic violence victims get the refuge and support that they need to escape their violent situations and offer a 24/7 hotline for those victims to seek the help that they need. If you're interested in learning more, you can visit their website at www.lacasa.org. Information will also be in the description below. Until next time, keep your chin up, you're an amazing person and you're never alone. I know it can be tough when life gets busy, trust me, I know, but remember to call that person you've been thinking about. It might make both of your day. Love y'all and say hi to your mom for me.